If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Witch, then why not become a Witch member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Witch magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Witch subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Witch app, and the digital edition of Witch magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Witch service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Witch subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Witch or to find out more, just head to witch.co.uk/podcast offer. That's witch.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Witch annual subscription.
Hello and welcome to the Witch Shorts podcast. I'm James Rowe. This is the podcast that brings you the very best from Witch, with a weekly taster of some of the brilliant journalism you can expect from your suite of magazines. This week we're looking at a Polish city that could be your next city break location. In the September edition of the Witch Travel magazine, editor Rory Boland travelled to a city he last visited 20 years ago to review what might be Europe's last grand undiscovered city break. Here's his piece, adapted for the podcast, read by Rory himself.
Poland remains the only country where I have been asked to state my intentions to gain entry to a public toilet. Pulling into Wroclaw main station, fresh off the night train and desperate, a scowling attendant at the kiosk barring entrance to the loo poked at a sign that displayed 2 different prices and demanded I choose one. After some sign language and a brief, if intense, period of being shouted at while I leafed helplessly through a Berlitz phrasebook, a kind soul behind me translated that what she was asking was if I needed a number 1 or a number 2. I reluctantly, publicly, declared my goal and handed over coins for a cubicle. In return, a final twist. She handed me 10 squares of greying toilet paper. I tell you this not to point and laugh. I later learned that rationing and scowling was a hangover from communism, when toilet paper shortages were severe, but as a point of reference for just how utterly changed Poland is now. In 2003, when I came here to live, the country was poor. In the same year that iTunes debuted and Concorde was still flying, I arrived to find airports that leaked when it rained, buses older than I was, and buildings pockmarked with bullets from the war. I went on to contribute to the first English language guidebook to Wrocław and found a city beautiful but bedraggled. Now, 20 years later, I'm astounded by what the Poles have done to the place. An almost evangelical national zeal to restore the country to its former glory has delivered the ultimate grand designs makeover. I land in an airport so new it sparkles, transfer to a bus built in Poland that runs on hydrogen, before alighting into a market square that, while always one of Europe's most breathtaking medieval spaces, is now restored to full swaggering grandeur. Under the midday sun, cobblestones gleam, not a scratch or scuff on them. Every inch of every Renaissance townhouse is licked in fresh paint, and each cherub and coat of arms chiselled back to perfection. The market square has always been Wrocław's main tourist attraction, but while it's a place with tourists, it's not for tourists. On a typical baking hot summer day, I find groups of children gleefully skidding through the spray from fire hydrants, and couples walking laps, hand in hand, stopping only to pick out scoops of ice cream. I join well-dressed families in frocks and linen shirts sipping Piast Wrocławski lager that sweats condensation while they browse menus of duck, halibut, or baked beetroot with salsa verde. There must be nearly 100 restaurants, bars and cafes on the square, and more than that in the surrounding cobbled streets. you could happily do little more than walk, eat, sip and repeat over a long weekend. And be happier still when you find change from £20 in your pocket after a day of indulging. I'd recommend visiting the IDA Kuchnia i Vino restaurant. It's a modern, if nondescript place on the edge of the old town and is a showcase for the quality of regional produce such as chłodnik, cooling beetroot and buttermilk soup, gnocchi-like Silesian dumplings, or duck paired with prized local horseradish. Listening to this, your mind might wander to Krakow, another Polish city famous for its market square and regularly ranked Europe's best city break. Poles love their ancient capital too. But perhaps what they appreciate most is that it leaves Wrocław for them to enjoy. Poland's third biggest city is busy, but never crowded. When I attempt to make a reservation at what may or may not be the oldest restaurant in Europe, a baffled maitre d' finally tells me this is completely unnecessary. Eating inside the oldest restaurant in Europe is a good start, but in between your bargain lunches and beers, you'll want to see a sight or two too. A tempestuous millennium of being fought over by 4 countries means the whole of Central European history is on show. On Ostrów Tomski, there are churches and monasteries nearly as old as the Polish state, and scandalous whispers that Casanova found love here. You can visit the royal chambers of Prussian King Frederick the Great in his former residence, or admire art and arms at a dozen other castles owned by warring Polish and German princes. While here, you'll repeatedly be told that Wrocław is the Venice of Poland. And rightly, you'll be sceptical of any city that bills itself the Venice of anywhere. But built across 12 islands, a boat tour is popular. I tried this too 20 years ago. It involved me, and me alone, on what can only be generously described as a refurbished goods barge, manned by an enthusiastic older gentleman with very few teeth or skill in navigating a river waterway. He well-meaningly spoke to me in German for the whole trip, despite the fact I didn't speak a word of German, stopping only to shout at people on boats he had motored into. This tour of crumbling embankments and decaying bridges crusted in smoke from communist industry didn't make the guidebook. Today, sat on a catamaran, cocktail in hand, we sail past swanky residential marinas, while petite yachts pull around to park in smart seafood restaurants. The embankments burst with life, repurposed as riverfront greenways and public plazas, while metal flamingos and sandy boardwalks mark out summer beach bars. It's no wonder Wrocław is now regularly ranked one of Europe's best places to live. There are glimpses of the old Poland, brooding brutalist apartment blocks in the distance yet to be rehabilitated, and even the odd bullet hole along the river if you look closely. But really, the only thing that hasn't changed since I first visited is perceptions of the country. Stereotypes of communism and cabbage continue to echo. It's a misunderstanding that leaves Wrocław as perhaps Europe's last great undiscovered city break. A star reborn, but yet to be rediscovered. Come and sit amid fabulous architecture, eat good food, and pay £100 for a 5-star hotel in a city that fizzes with confidence. A promise from me too. No one wants to know what you'll be up to on the loo anymore.
Rory Boland was reading his own piece, originally published in the September edition of the Which Travel magazine. To read it in full, then be sure to become a Which Travel member. It's the only way to find out which other restaurants and perhaps most importantly, which hotels Rory recommends. I'll pop a link in the show notes for you to find out more. We'll be back next week for another episode of Which Shorts, but don't forget about Which Money Shorts. Every fortnight on the Which Money podcast feed, we bring to life pieces from the Money magazine to give you some of the best advice to make the most of your hard-earned cash. Just search Which Money wherever you're listening. Which Shorts was produced and edited by me, James Rowe, while the exec producer was Grace Farrell. Life can get hectic when you start a family, but Which can help you make confident decisions from improving your home to financial planning. We'll make sure you're prepared. Whether you're looking to reduce your household bills, seeking advice around your child's health, or want to find our best buys for your new home, Which has got you covered. Use our expert advice to make the right choices for you and your growing family by visiting which.co.uk/growing family. That's where you'll find everything you need to make confident decisions and have peace of mind that all the advice you're getting is 100% independent. So to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/growing family.